Hello, it's the Anfield Wrap with John Gibbons hosting this week, and I'm joined by Neil Jones, Neil Dockin and Ian Salmon, and we are mainly going to reflect on West Ham 2, Liverpool 2 from the weekend. But first, like every Monday podcast this season, this episode of Tour is sponsored by Greene King Sport, where football is more than a game. Make Greene King your go-to destination for the season's final stretch, and with 900 sports clubs dotted around the UK, chances are you're within walking distance of your local Greene King. I like spotting more of them, by the way, now we're sort of associated with them. Child of Hale is my latest one. Oh, that's a Greene King pub. I play that game quite a lot. You can play it too. It's fun for the whole family. But let's be honest, football is way better watching it with friends and family. So get your team together for every televised Premier League fixture in an atmosphere worth sharing. This includes huge title showdowns, the race for European qualification, nail-biting relegation six-pointers, and whatever the fuck Liverpool are up to. Don't forget to download the Greene King Sport app to enjoy exclusive competitions and discounts whenever there's a game on. Right, on to the game. First of all, Neil Jones, what did you make of the team?
Yeah, I think what I expected. I think possibly one change maybe I would have made. I'd have probably played Salah.
I think he would have picked Salah.
Yeah. I think Salah definitely would have. Yeah. But I don't think you'd have any complaints after the Everton game. You know, you could make a case. Oh well, you know, you send them out there and say go and make amends. But really, so many of them were so poor in the game and looked so far off it that I think you had to make some changes. It was pretty much the Fulham team, wasn't it? And the team that done quite well at Fulham, you know, certainly in the second half. So I wasn't overly surprised by it. It's just sometimes this season it's been a case of like which right option do you want to pick. This one is sort of which is the least wrong, isn't it? You know, at the moment, everyone it doesn't feel like there's a right team to pick. It feels like you've just got to try and stumble upon a bit of a success. So, yeah, it's look, we'll go on and talk about the game itself. I wasn't exactly what I would have predicted, but it wasn't far off what I would have predicted in every sense, in terms of the goals conceded, the goals scored, the atmosphere, the sort of feeling. Probably a couple of incidents that happened in the second half that obviously you can't predict, but it was very much one of those games that I think, I could have told you that would have gone that way.
Yeah, it's as Neil Jones said, it's very similar to the Fulham team, and for that reason I was a bit surprised how much was sort of made of it, really, because when the Fulham team came out, you know, there's people who may be a bit surprised that he changed so many, but at the same time, I don't think it was necessary. It was seen as a sort of a manager's choice. It was 10 of the same 11, and the only one that's actually different is Jota, who's injured. So, you know, he could have done the full 11 if it hadn't been for sort of that injury. It's the turnaround is the same as well. So last week before Fulham, it's Thursday, Sunday. This time it's Wednesday, then the 12:30 on Saturday afternoon, and so it's actually even tighter in terms of the turnaround. So I guess it's understandable he'd make a lot of changes again, but I guess as well the issue was because he made a point of criticising the players, then it's going to be all eyes on who he does pick and who he doesn't.
Yeah, completely. I mean, when the team dropped, I was kind of like, not surprised, not shocked. I had no issues with it. My only concern was Harvey on the right of the forward line, which doesn't really work for me. I think he's better a little bit deeper, and I think he played a little bit deeper anyway. The shape wasn't the orthodox 4-3-3. It certainly moved around a bit. I didn't even think of it in terms of it being reverting to basically the Fulham lineup, and obviously the Fulham lineup had worked. I just thought the lads who were crap on Wednesday night, and there were a lot of them, have been bombed out. And it sounded, if you're going to be that poor in the derby, then you get bombed out. I don't care who you are. I mean, we will get onto a lot of Salah points later on, I think, but if Mo Salah's been relatively poor since he came back from AFCON with the injury, and I don't think he's got over the injury. I don't think he's got up to speed. It's probably the longest stretch we've seen him be weak for. The first leg-based injury he's had in his entire career. I'd begun to worry that we've seen the last of the Mo Salah that we knew. I don't know if that Mo Salah's coming back. I really don't. But I did say this with Kenny Dalglish when he got his cheekbone broken by Man United. So, you know, I talk shit at the best of times, and I've been doing for decades. I worry about Mo. So dropping him was the obvious thing to do because he's not being good. So give somebody else who's proved that they've been good during the season a chance to be good again. And as I said, Harvey there doesn't quite work for me, but he wasn't really there. The rest of the team made sense. I think Gravenberch has been to start. He didn't even get on it in the derby, did he?
No.
And, his face on the bench was kind of like, I could have done something there. And he's got, I think he showed in the game, and we'll undoubtedly get onto him as well. He's got something. He's got something he can add to the team and you can build on with him. He's doing interesting things. He's trying to make things happen. So the team for me was the right team to pick.
He's one of the few players, I think, Gravenberch, you can say that the season's almost ending too soon for him.
And Gakpo.
Yeah, the pair of them, it's very true.
Jonathan Pearce loved him on Match of the Day. Did he watch it? Every time he got it, he's like, he's had some game. He was like, he's steady on. But,
he just looked so bright, didn't he? He just looked so bright. And he's obviously an intelligent footballer. And those little combinations that he's popping off on the edge of the box, he's always so comfortable receiving the ball, turning, finding a man, and sometimes we've struggled to do that in the last few weeks.
Well, he's not going for the easy pass, is he? He's not going for the obvious first pass. He's bypassing the first man and getting it to where it needs to be in the end.
I think his weakness sometimes becomes his strength, doesn't it? I think he's a little bit he's very laid back, isn't he, as a player? And you can see that he doesn't look to me like he's someone who's always invested in the game for 90 minutes. He's invested sort of for moments in game, but I think that also allows him to be sort of not burdened by things that have been going on in the game. So he's not he's not sort of sitting there going, we've been in terrible form. It's almost like, well, here's the ball, I'll try and do something with it. It doesn't ever feel like he's sort of, I don't know, like he's really kind of worried about what's been going on previously. It's more just a case of, I'll get the ball and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, it's for me, in terms of who he is and picking, it's interesting who he is as much as anything. I'll go to you, Neil Dockin, on this. It's kind of like, for one, he keeps picking Diaz, and so you can sit here and say, well, look, he's just rotating and stuff like that. But the same players who he's not rotating, Virgil's he's playing every game and rotating the guy next to him. The fullbacks he's doing a little bit more so, but obviously, I think with Trent he's talked about trying to sort of play him into rhythm a bit, but Robbo more or less is playing every game there. But the Diaz one's the one that's interesting for me because you think, well, he's starting him and he's starting him, and that's obviously. I don't know whether that's because he feels Diaz has got a little bit more energy at this part of the season, but it feels to me more likely that Diaz is giving him what he wants. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, I would say he's always started Diaz. Like, he always picks Diaz. Whenever I'm on a show and people predict a starting lineup and Diaz isn't in it, I'm always just like, what are you on about? Like, we know Diaz is going to start if he's fit. He does seem to have incredible energy reserves. He's almost got that, we used to talk about Mo Salah being like this, that way where he just would play every single game if you picked him. Diaz seems to have that about him. I think of, running on one leg at Wembley in the Carabao Cup final, in extra time. I think he's had a really impressive second half of the season, Diaz. I wish he could have crowned it with a few more goals, a few more assists. There'll always be that argument about his end product and his numbers. But the way he carries the ball forward, the way he holds on to the ball, relieves pressure on us, the amount of times he's a bridgehead for an attack. I think he's a brilliant footballer. And there's a big part of me, there's already people saying that they think he's someone who's a sellable asset, could be moved on in the summer. And I keep thinking, but what could Slot maybe do with him? How could we get the better out of him?
He should be coming into his peak as well.
What I like about Diaz, and there's things I don't like about Diaz, I think generally I'd like to sort of grab him and move him 15 yards up the pitch every so often, stop getting the ball in the halfway line, try and get it in the final third and get in the penalty area more. But what's been a problem with Salah, what's been a problem with Nunez and a problem with Jota at times and Gakpo is you can come off at the end of the game and go, didn't touch the ball.
Yeah.
Diaz never that. Even if he is doing it sort of too far from goal, he's always battling, he's always dribbling, he's always there's never a case where you come off and think, didn't see Diaz today. You always think he's there, and sometimes that feeds into the frustration of we want to do more with it, but at least he's doing something, and that that's. I don't have any sort of surprise, or there's no surprise to me that he keeps picking him, because imagine what Liverpool's attack would look like if he didn't have Diaz. Imagine that at Goodison if he hadn't have had Diaz on the pitch. And I thought he was by far Liverpool's best player on Saturday as well.
And I think when you add Robertson in as well, and the two of them combining, it's been like the one part of the team that's been functioning over the last few weeks. And Robertson, we've all kept saying it, he's the one lad who looks like he knows there's a title race on. He's brought a level of quality and consistency, Robertson, at left back, that has really strengthened that flank. And it's unusual because the best part of the season, most of our play, it feels like, has been focused on the right, but the right flank's collapsed, hasn't it, with Salah and Szoboszlai?
Yeah, and he's unlucky as well not to get a couple of goals in the last few games, Ian. And I take the point that the lads have made and people generally make with Luis Diaz and say, well, are his numbers, in terms of goals and assists, high enough for a Liverpool player in a front line in a 4-3-3, and I think that's something that he does need to address. But he'll be looking at those last two games and thinking he couldn't have come any closer. The one that hits the post against Everton is a brilliant effort and looks all the world in, and then he hits the post again with the keeper nowhere at the weekend. And listen, hitting the post is technically a shot off target, and there's times where you can hit the woodwork and it's a miss. I'm looking at Ryan Gravenberch at Brighton. That's a miss, but there's other times where you're like, he's just a bit unlucky there. He couldn't have done any more, and I think he's got them in both games, and an inch either side in both, and he's sitting here with 2 goals in 2.
But he's in double figures for the season anyway, isn't he?
Yeah.
And it's weird that the world seems happy to have a conversation about the lack of output from Diaz, but no one's having this conversation about Doku, and Doku literally has no end product at all. I think he's got He's in single figures for the season, isn't he? And he was a big buy. He was a buy that everybody wanted a couple of seasons ago. City spent a lot of money on him. He's now their left forward. He's not doing the job that Diaz is doing. Diaz is doing the far best job.
I think you could say the same about Grealish.
Yeah, last season. For all his good performances, he wasn't getting the numbers, was he?
Yeah. They very much do a step over on the edge, hope something happens.
I think Diaz is not far off being Mane kind of level, probably a few below in terms of goals, but Mane had one season, I think, when he got sort of 23, maybe more, but he was generally, I think, 15 to 21, 22, so Diaz isn't far off that. I think there is an element,
and he was out for 2 months.
And there's 4 others who are all in double figures as well around it. I think the one thing I do think is, in the league, I think Gakpo's got 6, and I think Diaz has got 8. Yeah. And you think, okay, of course you've got, I'm not saying stat padding, but you've got a lot of cup games that you're building up.
Well, even Nunes is only 11.
Exactly, there you go, yeah. And I think Salah's 17, isn't he, in the Premier League? So you would think that, okay, I want him to be looking at sort of 12, 15 league goals. That would be where you'd want, especially if you start in every game. He must have 50, I think, appearances, Diaz, this season. I think he could have more end product, but like John says, I mean, he's that close to scoring at Goodison. He's that close to scoring at West Ham. He does set up a goal at the weekend for Robertson. If anyone was going to set another goal up, it was going to be him. He probably should have scored, shouldn't he? It was the one when he ran clean through. Was it Gravenberch put him through? He ran through and he took it early. He might have even gone square to someone.
Oh, he pokes it with his right foot, doesn't he? Where he should go with his left.
It was a bit more clinical. He obviously had the big chances against City in the second half of that game. I think you do maybe worry that is he a killer, as managers would call him. But I'll tell you what, like I say, take him out of Liverpool's team in the last few weeks, and it wouldn't be a very pretty sight at all.
The first half, it's a funny game, isn't it, Ian? It feels very much like a pre-season game. I know there's a lot of things contributed to it. The fact is that West Ham have got a little to play for as well. It's a 12:30 on a Saturday. It's a funny football stadium. I mean, it's a push to call it a football stadium. To be honest with you, it's a stadium where football is played. But all sorts of contributed. I saw it on the subscribers group on Facebook. Someone put, "It feels a bit early for pre-season." and that was, in the ground. That was how it felt like, and it was like the atmosphere was crap, but it wasn't crap like it was at Everton in terms of the way and where everyone's just on edge and fuming. Like, I was on the concourse and everyone was having a nice time, and it was like, oh yeah, well, we better go and watch this game. You just sort of wander up, and it was a bit like in the summer where you'll go watch a game of cricket and you're like, it's just a nice day, and then you're like, you'll go to Sefton and watch a bit and have a pint. It felt a little bit like that, really. And then they scored, and it just seemed to go, oh yeah, shit, fucking hell, we might, because they did actually play all right in the first half, but very much in a West Ham aren't really trying sort of way.
I can't think of many things more boring than going to watch a game of cricket. but the first half of Saturday was probably one of them. It was a bizarre game because it did have that. Our WhatsApp group was talking about pre-season vibes, and that's what it felt like all the way through. It was at half speed, having a semi-conversation with Adam Smith on Twitter about it. Adam thought we played really well and we were in control. I thought we were shite, and I thought it was just a game where nobody was asked about what happened. It just looked like two very fragile teams who didn't want to try and do anything against each other, which made the absolute mental pace of the first 10 minutes of the second half come from nowhere whatsoever, because it just suddenly exploded in the most unexpected way. But that first half, it was just... It's the easy option all the time. It's the pass back. I think our go-to position when we're unsure is a short pass back, reset, start again. A short pass back, reset, start again, which can be fine at times. But at the moment, it looks like we're doing it because we have no confidence of moving forward. There was nobody trying to get the ball forward through midfield, and it was just go back to the centre backs. And then the centre backs weren't playing long diagonals. The centre backs were just passing it to the nearest man, and everything was past the nearest man. Move up 3-4 yards past the nearest man. It's a really tedious way to play football. It's a really boring thing to watch, and it doesn't give any results at all. And that was our entire first half. And the only thing that was surprising about the first half was that anybody scored. The fact that it wasn't us wasn't a shock, but the fact that anybody scored was mildly shocking.
Yeah, I was near to Ian Salmon in that I was surprised that people were praising Liverpool, because I think, we did have control, but I think the main difference between the first half on Saturday and the first half on Wednesday against Everton was the opposition. In that Everton would just sort of bang up for it and made us look a bit kind of like lethargic. West Ham were more lethargic with us, and then we weren't really trying to do much. So it's quite easy to look like you've got control if A, the opposition aren't tackling you, and B, you're not really doing much with the ball.
Yeah, I guess so. I think I'm a bit more optimistic or positive about it. Yeah, I thought we played quite well, I have to say, in the first half. But it was the deadest of dead rubbers. And I just think there's no denying that. I mean, you've got a legendary manager who's given, his fans the best nights of their lives, European Cup winning manager, leaving at the end of the season. And you've got Jurgen Klopp, who's off too. And but they're both in the same position, aren't they? They're in the same position in that their manager is leaving. They actually want shut of him a lot more than we do, but their manager's off, our manager's off. Both of us, there's no real goals for the end of the season left. Both gone out of Europe, so I wasn't particularly surprised that it wasn't, up and at them, blood and guts and thunder. But I thought Liverpool were probing, passing the ball fairly well, as I've already spoke about. Gravenberch being bright, Diaz being bright. I thought Gakpo was impressive in the first half, but it didn't really, materialise in chances. There wasn't much action, I think, at either end. I mean, other than maybe the contentious call, early on, the Paquetá foul on McAllister, which I find boggling. I just don't understand where the boundaries are.
They're the ones I don't get.
Yeah,
I'm
the same with
in terms of,
because you'll see the same one next week and it'll be a red card.
Yeah.
At the very least, I think you need to say to the ref, look, your call. You obviously haven't seen it because you haven't booked them, so you don't think it was as bad as it is. Just have a look at that. That could be a red.
Yeah, they are the ones, Neil, that I haven't been able to get my head around, and I do try on these. Like, I'm not as anti-ref as a lot of people. I think by and large, you do all right in that the jobs become very, very, very difficult in terms of rule changes and focus and stuff like that. And I don't think they're as bad as sort of what's been made out. And I also don't think they're as important, to be quite honest with you, as what's sort of made out. They're being talked about like they're the most, the deciding every football game week after week. And I just don't think they are. No. I think the footballers are, by and large, and every now and again you'll get something mad that happens. But I think the thing I'm struggling with, and it is these ones that go over the top and into the shins, and I try and read up on it, and Dale Johnson has a go and he talks about force and angle of the foot and stuff like that, and you're trying to take it all in because I want to be I think what a lot of us want is to be able to look at something and go, oh, that's a red or that's a yellow, and with those challenges I feel like it is completely potluck.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the way you've got to look at it is, is that player lucky to avoid serious injury? Yes, red card. Yeah. That's the only way you can do it. And of course you get the players who some players will bounce up and you won't notice almost that a bad tackle's gone in. Some players will roll around and make sure that you notice it. But you've given the free kick, so you know it's a foul. You don't think it's a yellow card, so I don't know what you think you've just trod on his toe or whatever. Someone has to say it's not his toe. You know, it's higher than that, and he's lucky there that he's not come a little bit more forceful himself, McAllister, or he's not planted his foot. I think that, you know, Liverpool had one with Curtis, didn't they? Where for all if frustrated at the time, you're looking and say, well, to be fair, Basuma's lucky that he hasn't got a broken leg, and it's because of the way Curtis goes in for the ball, even if it's not intentional whatsoever. But he got a red card for that. This was another one there that you think that was it Forest? I'm sure it was Forest. It has to be Forest. There was a Forest one, wasn't there, where they went absolutely berserk about it. Was it a Bournemouth player? Was it?
That's
over
right,
the top on Forest, and they went mad. And you're looking at it going, oh, come on, just as if you play outside of VAR, so you play in the Championship or you play non-league amateur football, the one thing that really, really, really you rely on the referee for is, look, let's not get anyone's leg broken here today.
Yeah.
I think that still has to be the case in the Premier League, and I think there's so much focus. You know, looking again, why is Onana not sent off on the weekend? I can't understand why there was no discussion about Onana. It's like a penalty. Why is that? Because he's punched him in the face.
When you put it like that,
I'm going to ask, is that a red card? You know, it is, isn't it? I don't care if he's that close to getting it or he's that close. It's dangerous, and
if that's what you're giving the pen for, you're acknowledging that the incident took place.
What's he done? He's punched him in the face. Okay, no problem. Yeah, penalty. You get back in your goal. You. No, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird, and it's not your first. You've done it before this season as well. But I thought it was a red card. Look, I think you come away and you go, bit of a silly one. He's not gone to hurt him. He's just gone for the ball and he's caught him. But that's what gets the people's leg, bro.
You just want to see the laws applied, because it could have seen the first half pan out very differently if they're down to 10 straight away. But the biggest frustration for me at the weekend with the first half is the same that we've had so many times this season, it seems, is that it's fine to have a dull 45 away from home. I've been brought up on it. I'm a child of Houllier and Rafa. The first half of football matches are meant to be shit away from home.
But it has to be 0-0.
It has to be 0-0. At half-time, it should be 0-0. And what we keep seeing from this Liverpool team, and we saw it at Fulham, although in that game, obviously, we'd opened the scoring, just before half-time, they're just losing focus, losing concentration, and not doing the basic things. It's our goal kick that the whole sequence of events their goal starts from. So it's gone out on João Konsa, isn't it, who's played a poor pass into midfield. And then Endo's struggling then to recover it, and then Bowen's got off the shot, and then that's prompted the corner. And then the corners come in, and they're not live to it, and you've got one of the smallest men on the pitch winning a header and opening the scoring. It's just a succession. It's just stupid. And I think we're just shooting ourselves in the foot this season over and over again by not being focused and not being professional. I think that is the word, professional, especially in those minutes around half-time. You know, if we got in at half-time 0-0, that's fine. That's a springboard then. It's a platform for a second half. But we keep on giving ourselves this position where, however many times it is now, 28, 30 times, I lose track, 28 times this season, we've come from behind to gain points, something ridiculous like that. You just can't do it. It's not sustainable.
16 out of 35 in the league, 1-0 down. And I went through them, and some of them are ridiculous.
There's some crap teams who were going 1-0 against
I think there's 4 at Anfield inside the first 10 minutes. 1-0 down, you think, it's just not right, is it? But I agree. And I think maybe to go back to Ian's point of the sort of easy way of playing, that lends itself to making mistakes of that ilk, doesn't it? Because you're not fully invested in bang, firing the pass, bang, moving forward, idea of where you're going to go. If you're going sideways and back a lot more, or you're playing in your own defensive third, there's more chance of you're making a mistake that's going to cost you.
The thing is, we go in at 0-0 at half-time. I thought you were being very generous saying we lose focus just before half-time, because we tend to lose in the first 3 minutes as well. But if we go in at 0-0, the beginning of the second half is going to be exactly the same as the beginning of the second half was, because we will have we'll have very similar team talk at half time, because the team talk is already set up. He already knows what he needs to do, because the zip that we come out with in the second half, and the fact that we are firing the ball and the ball's popping round and there's actual movement going on, that would still be dealt with at half time, whether we're 1-0 down or we're 0-0.
Yeah.
So don't concede. You're going to get 2 goals in the first 15 minutes.
It's one clean sheet in the last 14 league games, isn't it? Which is appalling.
That's pathetic.
Yeah, it's absolutely embarrassing. And I know in the end they conceded 2 goals yesterday, but everyone's looked at Arsenal jealously over the last few weeks and looked at their defensive strength, and that's what a title challenge should be based on. And the consistency and stability they've got in defence is so key. I think I was thinking about this at the time when Joel Matip got his injury in December and he was out for the season. I thought it was a blow, but I don't think I realised quite what a blow it was, because he was in such good form and he's an excellent defender, always has been. Brilliant partnership with Van Dijk down the years. Well, yeah, I mean, one of the best signings in Liverpool's history, pound for pound. Yeah, great in the air, great experience, calm, brings the ball out so well. So I could talk about Joel Matip all day. I'm not going to turn this into the Joel Matip appreciation show, but that was a massive moment for me, a defining moment in the season that I don't think I realised at the time, because since then we've chopped and changed at the back so often, not being able to rely on Konaté's fitness, and then his form has totally nosedived. I kept thinking we've got to pick him because he's the man. Surely at some point it'll come good, but it just hasn't transpired that way. He was terrible in the derby. And so then we've had to rely on Quansah, who I think has performed admirably, really impressive. But he's a young player and he's going to make mistakes. And he's made mistakes in big games, in big moments that have cost us. I mean, that's natural for a young player. And then Gomez, who he sees more, Jurgen's seen more as a sort of utility man, as a man at fullback. So we just haven't had that consistency. There's no centre-back pairing that you can put your hat on. And I think that's been a big reason why our title challenge has faded.
And that's a question we've asked a few times recently. Why not use Gomez centre-back?
Yeah, it's interesting.
We're okay for full-backs at the moment. We don't need to have him sat on the bench to come on as a full-back. Why not start him as a centre-back? So, Quansah, obviously there's the Man United cross-field pass, play blind, which costs us. But that's one of those things that happens with a young player.
Gerrard did it about 5 times, didn't he?
Yeah, it's not uncommon, and that's playing with confidence. That's expecting the ball. That's expecting the recipients of the ball to be there for you. Yesterday's is a mistake again by him, but we've got plenty of time to recover from him. So the goal isn't his fault. The mistake is his, but the goal isn't his fault because we've got loads of time to recover. But Joe Gomez could have been there. There's no reason for Joe Gomez not to be playing there.
And I don't disagree with that, Neil, but I think it's more complicated than a personnel issue, and it seems to be like a general attitude of the team. And it's, you're looking at them and thinking, well, why can't we concentrate at times? Why is this a bit of lethargy going into games? Why is that? And I think you can say we miss Matip, and I think that's fair because he's a really good player. But you're looking at that back line, and or looking at the back line against Everton, and
first choice.
Well, the back line against Everton started Champions League final less than 2 years ago, and so the good players here, and so you're thinking, well, are they not getting the correct protection from the midfield, or is it? Are we not defending well as a team? Like, that's what Jurgen Klopp would say, wouldn't he? We're not defending well as a team, rather than sort of looking at sort of individuals. But I just wonder whether I don't know whether there's just enough sort of strong personalities in the team at the moment. I've noticed a bit of criticism for Virgil over the last few weeks in terms of his captaincy, and I was a bit surprised by it. But listen, when the team's not doing well, everyone's up for a bit of on the microscope, aren't they? But I think Virgil's a really good captain. I just think that it feels to me like they're looking at it like there's a lot on him. And I think you look at captains in the past and the support that they've had. The last one, Henderson, he's got Milner, he's got, what we used to talk about, cultural architects sort of all over the team, but also people you didn't need to worry about. Virgil probably feels like he's got to worry about fucking everyone. And I think there's you talk about switching off from that corner. Virgil's shouting at them all, do you know what I mean? And so he's not helping in that situation, but he probably goes, well, if I don't, then sort of what are we going to do? And I feel like, it felt like in the summer we had a lot of leaders and we had a lot of, big personalities. And we talked about how many national captains we had and stuff like that, but it's become a bit obvious that some of them are captains for the country just because they're the best player rather than sort of anything else. And I think with the exception of Robertson, as we mentioned before, I think that the big players or the big personalities, they're not sort of standing up for me. And so, listen, could we be getting more from Virgil? I'm sure we could, and he talked about looking in the mirror, and he needs to do that as well. But I just think he might just feel like they're fucking only grown up in the room at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I think I say Virgil, Robertson and McAllister, I would say, are the three that you just look at as sort of not. I know McAllister's form has dropped a bit, but not really doing mad stuff, not sort of losing their way, but still believing in the way that the game's played. And Diaz, obviously, as we mentioned,
but Diaz is doing his own thing.
But
He's in his own
Diaz
kind
is
of
a forward player who's sort of very much he is an individual sort of mindset.
He's in the we don't have to worry about him category.
I do look at sort of so many players have got things on the plate, haven't they? Aside from the overall issue of the team, and you look at obviously Jarell Quansah's a young lad learning. He's playing his first game. Kanate's just his form's gone off a cliff. Sorry, Alisson's been coming back from injury. Curtis Jones coming back from injury. Harvey Elliott's been sort of in and out of the team, and I think he might well be forgiven for thinking, why am I sort of in and out of the team? I should be probably in the team. Soboslai's form's gone off a cliff. I think Endo's form's gone off a cliff. Salah's form's gone off a cliff. There's a lot of players. Trent's got this sort of this tactical role that, I mean, I'm surprised I haven't heard him say more about. It's hard, it's hard. I've got to get on the ball every set, and then there's usually some absolute flyer out there, and if I give away one sort of set yard of space, they're in on our goal every single time, but it looks like it's me who's at fault for it when I'm actually being told. He explained it to Gary Neville quite well, didn't he? So we've always got to have 4 in the middle, and usually it falls on him to become the 4th in the middle. But to me, that I listen to, a Luddite in this, but it doesn't work. To me, it doesn't work. It hasn't worked for Liverpool for so long. The reward risk thing is just not. For me, the risk is far greater than the reward of having that. I think you need to start looking at Trent. He either plays right back or he plays midfield, and that's that. But a lot of players have got stuff on the plate. Is the point I'm trying to make. There's a lot of players who they haven't got the experience and or the time at this moment in time to think about the bigger picture. They're more wrapped up in their own problems, and Liverpool have looked a little bit like a team in the last few weeks. I think that I've sort of got this fatalistic sort of approach of it's going to go wrong today. This is going to as soon as this is going to go wrong today. We're not fully believing in what's going to happen today, and it's been sad to see because in the first part of the season it was really there. I thought it was really evident that whenever Liverpool had a setback in a game, even if it was a red card or it was an early goal against, you felt like they all sort of went, no, we're in there. But most of them were in a good moment in terms of their form. They were all in this kind of, we're playing well, Soboslai. I'm fresh, I'm new. Now, so many of them aren't, that it feels like when there's a setback, it feels like it just goes, oh, not that as well. Like, this is it. I'm getting subbed on the 60, or I'm getting left out of the team the next game, or I'm going to get slaughtered by the media, or Van Dijk's going to come out. There's just a lot of problems on people's plates at this moment, and it's reflected in the performances, I think. Yeah,
that's all fair, but then, like you say, Ian, they do come out second half and look really bright, and you can see when Liverpool play like that, you're almost like, oh, this is what it looks like. Do you know what I mean? Because the passing's sharper, the first to more, they look like in a really basic way, just up their effort levels a bit, but also they're just a bit more, they're braver with what they're trying to do. There's more men getting forward, and that's symbolised by Andy Robertson popping up in the box to sort of score one. But when we're playing like that, you're like, well, look, you can do it. It's not that hard. Like what you're doing is not like particularly mind blowing. It's just you're just passing it quicker. You're passing it a bit sharper. You're running around a bit more in a really basic way, and then look what happens. You get 2 goals.
Yeah, I think it's obvious. If you run on a defence and have a shot, then you've got more chance of scoring a goal. It's just as the very basics of the game. I think our mentality shot. I think our mentality shot to the level that we had at the beginning of the season. In a minute, I'll manage to talk without coughing. We had the beginning of the season where we looked bright. We got to a really good position. We go through the periods of adversity with having to play all the kids. At the moment, I'd kill to see Bobby Clark and Jayden Daniels coming on, because at least they'd have a little bit of... They would lack the fear. They played without fear, and we're playing with fear. And I was looking at it last night, because obviously the conversation is very much, is it Klopp's announcement that he was going? And the answer is no, because from Klopp's announcement on the 26th of January to the end of March, we played 12 games, we win 10, draw 1 and lose 1.
Including the final,
which we have to dig deep. And Virgil has to score the same goal twice in order to win it. And we're playing that with the kids, and then we start getting the players back who aren't quite fit enough to be back, but they're coming back in. The players who've gone through it all, they're beginning to feel the pressure of it. It's the United game. it's being so good against United in the Cup and going out, at which point the dream of the quadruple's gone. So you've lost the dream right away. You've lost the dream of that particular. We're going for the most glorious thing anyone's ever managed. It's gone. It's just been pulled. And we were good, but then we lost.
Do you think they bottled it? Do you think you can put that in there? Because if
I don't like to use the phrase bottled.
No, I don't like it either. It's a base. I know that's you're right. It's a very base sort of thing. But you look at Arsenal last year.
Yeah,
quite similar. Quite similar. Arsenal looked infallible for a good period. And then it was almost like one game. It was Anfield, wasn't it? They came to Anfield. And
it was Granit Xhaka.
Yeah. And it was like, oh God, are we gonna do this again? Yeah. No, we won't. We'll go out next week. And oh God, it's happened again. And it does feel a little bit similar to Liverpool. Like one game just went, oh God, this might not happen. This amazing finale to our season.
We lose the FA Cup, so we dreamed of the quadruple. So the whole last dance theory and the quadruple is what we're aiming for, and we're talking about it. The players are talking about. Trent's talking about winning goal 4. Szoboszlai's talking about. So everyone's talking about winning goal 4, and straight away we go to United. We're better than them. We play them off the park. Bang! There you go. You're out, and you're out because we didn't defend our own corner, and we've blown it. We've blown the quadruple. So there you go. That's the second time in 3 seasons we've blown a quadruple. But this time we didn't get as far. Okay, so your head's gone. So you have 2 games where we get it over the line, and it's a little bit ropey. And then you go to Man United again and do the same bloody thing. And you play them off the pitch. And you should be about 5-0 up at half time, but you're not. You're 1-0 up at half time. Then you're 2-1 down, and then you have to come back. And it's like, this is happening again.
That's what gives me a little bit of encouragement. And I know we're right at the end of the agenda, but for the next season, is that Arsenal did that last season, and people question them, and their players come back the following year and went like, we've got obviously there are a couple of additions, didn't they? Obviously Rice being a big one, but it was almost like they came back and they went, right, what went wrong last season? Okay, that went wrong. And they solved a lot of the issues, or they have seemed to have solved a lot of the issues. They're better defensively. They're more disciplined. I think they keep players fit better for whatever reason. So it does look like they learned the lessons, and that gives me a bit of hope that Liverpool, no matter what the last month has felt like, they were that close. They've lost 4 games this season, and 2 of them within the last 2 weeks. So they were that close to doing it.
City have lost 5.
Possibly. I
mean, Arsenal have lost 5 and City have lost 3.
It's one bad month out of 9 or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. So when people are saying, right, that needs to change. No, it doesn't. Probably some things will need to change. I think there's a couple of things or a couple of signings you'd want to see made, and there's a couple of question marks around. Okay, were them players overperforming or not? But I think the general feeling for me is that this is a team that's on the up, and if it can use the experiences of this terrible sort of end to the season, there's enough there to say, well, actually, you don't need to worry about too much. It's more a case of frustration now that you got yourselves in that position. I think especially if this had gone off the rails in February and March, you'd have said, what a great effort, and then we just couldn't handle the injuries, and if we'd have had them fit for the whole season, we'd have been in there. I think it's more the fact that you got through the toughest period, and then it was like, right, you wait till Jota's back and you wait till he's back, and no, it's gone off the rails
because everyone's exhausted, and everyone had pushed themselves so hard. And
maybe some people took their eye off the ball. Maybe some people felt like that. Virgil maybe felt, right, I don't have to worry about.
But
all
it's hard
these
to
young
play
kids.
in that intensity for that longer period, I think, and I think that's where
we only had to do it for another month. We've done it for a long time.
Yeah,
I think.
But this is where your point about the United game taking the wind out the sails, though. I think that happens, and then I think you can go on adrenaline sometimes, and then something like that happens,
and the adrenaline goes,
and then you're like, the adrenaline's gone, and then suddenly you're like, oh yeah, I'm fucked. You know what I mean?
I think to rebuild, there's and obviously it will be a rebuild of some kind. There's 3 things that we have to face up to in order to rebuild the mentality. I'm not going to say we bottled it, but every other fan of every other club on earth gets to say it, and we just have to swallow that. We can't argue against it because they're going to say it, and we're just going to have to go, yeah, do you know what? Maybe we did. Man United broke our season. We have to accept that because the Man United fans are going to give it to us forever. And
we've got very little else.
Yeah, and we lost the league at Goodison. And everybody's arguing, going, no, we lost it, pals. We didn't lose it, pals. Let's just accept we lost the league at Goodison because they're going to tell us that we did forever. We lost the league at Goodison, right? Okay, we did. Crack on with what we rebuild next.
And crack on they will. We'll go into next season, and this period, does give us a little bit of time to do that. Everything's pedals gone. It looks like they qualify for the Champions League unless something mad happens with goal difference.
Spurs have got to score an avalanche, haven't they?
Yeah, basically. And we were going to concede.
They'll go for it, though, Spurs.
Just who we are, mate.
James Maddison getting the honours out. So it allows us to sort of...
The next 3 games, 11-10.
It allows us to sort of look ahead. And we're going to do that in the last sort of 5 minutes of the show. But before we do, I did want to get people's thoughts on 2 flashpoints of the game on and off the pitch at the weekend. There's the Gakpo sort of, did he have a right to put the ball in the back of the net or not, which was quite an interesting one. But the Salah one was the one that got a lot of attention afterwards. And I'll start with you, Neil Dock, and it was sort of a bit mad to watch. I think, a few people have pointed out since then that it's not unusual for Jurgen Klopp to have heated disagreements with people he's either brought on or taken off. There's the James Milner one.
James Milner at the same stadium, wasn't it?
Which the Anfield Wrap show all the time. I love to sort of tweet and stuff like that where he's having a big argument and then suddenly they score and everyone's sort of laughing. I was reminded of a mad one which was Mane when he doesn't start at Old Trafford and he brings him on and he refuses to shake Klopp's hand at the end and we won that game 5-0.
There's a Henderson one as well, isn't there? There's a Henderson one but he doesn't touch.
When he gets taken off and doesn't do it. So it has happened before. I don't know whether this is bigger because we don't win the game. It's bigger because obviously Jurgen's leaving, so people are looking into certain things. The Salah's ongoing contract situation. It is Mo Salah, so everything's sort of bigger. How big a thing did you think it was, or do you feel like is it been blown up a little bit more than normal, or do you think it's your best player having an argument with your manager? It's a fairly significant thing.
Yeah, I mean you can't really get away from that. It is Mo Salah. It's the greatest player of this era, arguably, and the greatest manager. 2 of the greatest figures in Liverpool's history. Going at it hammer and tongs on the touchline. It's going to be a story. It's going to be a huge story. And then the fact that Jurgen then tried to put it to bed and say it's all been spoken about, it's all done and dusted. And then if I speak today, there will be fire. Salah coming out that Mourinho-like line, really, isn't it? Afterwards, it's going to blow it right back up, and it's obviously amplified because of the circumstances, because Jurgen's on the way out, because of all the doubts surrounding Salah's future with his contract and interest from Saudi or even PSG, I've heard talk, and then the fact that he has obviously struggled so badly since coming back from injury and re-injuring himself in the game at Brentford where we suffered injuries, and injuries cause more injuries, don't they? He came on goal and assist and then injured himself and missed the final, which I kept thinking about, and missed potentially the last might be the last chance he has to lift silverware at Liverpool. You don't know, because there is so much suggestion that he might be on the way in the summer. So I just think it's because of who it is, it's always going to be a massive story. But at the same time, we do have to take a breath and say this happens all the time in football. As you've just said, given all those examples, managers and players have these issues all the time. And I remember there's a Klopp quote, I think, where he said once, if Mo Salah's happy coming off in a game of football, then something's wrong. Where he used to, some rare occasions where he doesn't let Salah play. Every minute of every match, Salah would kick off. He's a winner. He's the first one, Mo, isn't he, to have come out a few times and been such a leader for this team, speaking about how it's not good enough that we didn't get Champions League last season. He's very self-critical and critical of the team as a whole when we don't fulfil our objectives. And he must be hurting that he's been able to, whether it is injury or just not been able to get it formed together, he's not really been able to have an impact on this title race. I kept thinking in one of these games that he's just going to produce a moment of magic.
I thought he was at the end.
Yeah.
When he went on that run, it was
I didn't think he was going to pass.
Yeah. I didn't think he was going to pass like that.
But it's a terrible pass.
It's an awful pass because Darwin's in, and that sort of sums up a lot of how we've been attacking recently, isn't it? The pass is just behind him or whatever, and you have to wait.
I wonder what he meant. Look, I think you can give it. There's an open side. Did he mean, I know why you want to speak to me? And if I say whatever I say, you're going to turn that into something. So that's the fire. Is that you will make it a fire, or is it I can't control this rage that's building up inside me? So I think that you can question that in the sense of he doesn't stop in season anyway.
No,
he's only ever stopped twice, I think, for the media, and he made promises. One was I'll speak to you when I get to 30 goals in his first season, I think it was, and the other one was if we win the Champions League, I'll speak, and he did, and it was 2 minutes both times. I was there both times. So it's not. The mix zone thing, I don't think it's not helpful, but I think you can interpret it differently. You know, I think there's every chance that they've just gone, all right, yeah, no problem, and then Salah's thought, you know what, come on, you think I'm stupid? I'm going to stop and speak to you, and you're going to say the first question will be, what did Klopp say? What did this? And then you'll create a storm out of it. So I think there's that element to it.
Just don't say it in such a stylish way.
Yeah.
Don't say it like such a killer line.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but
so it's this flow with the issue. Is that what you're saying?
And I think too much flair.
The other thing to remember is, like, there is a way that Salah could look at and say, okay, you've made X amount of changes, but what's the headline of all your changes? Mo Salah on the bench. So does he feel a little bit like, I'm taking the flak for this when I'm your top scorer, I'm your top assister, I'm your one who's maybe played through injuries, I've come back and re-injured myself, like, and now I'm getting I'm getting 11 minutes at West Ham when, let's be fair, the people who came in weren't any better than Salah. They got 2 goals. One was 3 deflections off 3 different players, and one was a left back. Very weird sort of finish, but you know, it's not like your forwards have come in and absolutely ripped it up and scored in my place. So he does have an entitlement to say, come on, like, could you not have backed me in these games? But Klopp could easily argue and say, well, I did on Wednesday night, and you had Ashley Young and Mykolenko and you did nothing. So it's a tough one. And the other thing I would probably have to say is they're both winners. They're both, and it must absolutely kill Klopp to have, never mind the last few weeks of his time, but just the last few weeks of a season develop into this. And for Salah, who's gone away, had his AFCON ruined, he's gone away with ambitions that, look, I could win everything, I could have a Ballon d'Or if I carry on in this kind of form. You know, like, I'm in a position to get everything, golden boot, and it's all developed into this. You're going to get that frustration, I think, and maybe there's just a little element of both of them just reaching the end of the tether of just like, fucking have this, to be honest. I would like to think the last 3 games there'll be a few smiles and happier moments, because it would be horrible if it was to finish on that note, because those two are probably, if you talk about the last 7-8 years of Liverpool, who's responsible for them, I think that's 1 and 2. I think Jürgen and Salah are 1 and 2.
I mean, that was all pretty good, but you got to go too, Ian.
No. I think
no.
that's I think you said everything he's saying there. I think there's looking at Salah at the time, it was kind of like, don't do that, just don't do that. And
sorry to interrupt, just I'm not sure.
I think I'm about to make the same point you are.
Well, I'm about to ask the question on the chain of events. When did West Ham score?
It's not that. That's a chance. I think that's a chance that West Ham have, isn't it? That when that row's going on, I think, because you see the reaction of the fans is almost
no, it's like 2-1. So 2-1's the argument. So I wonder whether it was the goal that had done it, and he was like, "What? I think you should have put me on before."
It's the goal. Goes in the back of the goal goes in the back of the net, and he kicks off that point. But the reason he kicks off is Jürgen said something to him.
Yeah,
Jürgen says something to him and he responds to it. So I don't know what Jürgen said. We'll never know what Jürgen said.
I think what's happened is that he's gone to hug him and Klopp's gone and Salah's gone nah, but he does shake his hand. So he does go over, he shakes his hand, and then Klopp's like, yeah, that was a bit, and then he's like, Salah's said,
and then they explode.
And then and apparently Jürgen said, we'll go and fucking sit down if you want. Do you know what I mean? It's about 30 seconds before the equaliser, Andy's telling me. So there we are. Yeah. So I wonder whether it was that. But I think basically Salah's been a bit grumpy with him, and Jürgen's gone, if you don't want to go on, just fucking go and says he can go and fucking sit down if you want to. And I think that's where Mo loses his shit.
That's where it's really kicked off. Yeah. Fair enough. And in the mixed zone, I would have so much more respect for Mo if he just said, when the seagulls follow the trawler.
I think it's frustrating again that we're talking about all this instead of what was for 20-25 minutes after the break a really impressive performance where we were right at it. Trent got on the ball, and Trent was again making a case, I think, as you said earlier, where we've got to almost make a decision now, one thing or the other. I'm hoping that it is to move him to midfield, because in a two in midfield, because when he gets on the ball and he's closer to goal and he's driving passes in, fizzing them into feet like Gerrard-esque and through balls, and he's got so much to his game, the ability to get a shot off as well, to be a goal threat. I just felt that, along with Diaz and Robertson and Gakpo, all bright. There was a couple of chances with Gakpo where I just wanted him to hit it sooner, almost like Jota, take the shot straight away. You don't have to take the touch sometimes, just hit it, snapshot. But it was so much brighter, and again, we've got ourselves in front. and it's just so frustrating to concede another sloppy goal. The only way Antonio's scoring, really, isn't it? It's a frustrating situation, but we've got ourselves into a position now where we're all so despondent, about the way that the season's panned out, that people are going to be pissed off. They're all pissed off. I'm pissed off. Mo's pissed off. Jurgen's pissed off. We're all fucked off, aren't we? Nobody wanted it to end like this. So I think they've all this week, we've just got to get back on the same page. There's a bit of a break now, thank God, before the Spurs game, isn't there?
We've got to calm everyone down
and just say, start of the season, finished 5th last year, utter disappointment this year, likely 3rd.
But if Spurs went 8-0... the goal difference becomes a thing then, doesn't it?
But, start of the season, 3rd place, win the League Cup. This team's progressing, a whole lot of new players. We found ourselves in a title challenge we didn't expect to be in. We've come up short. I think there was a loss of nerve, if you want to call it that. I do think there was a loss of nerve. I do think the pressure got to them. But I also think there's a lack of quality in several key positions in the squad. It's still obvious we need a defensive midfielder and an elite number 6, which we didn't sign. There's lots of issues I can point to. It's, we were talking about individuals earlier. It's not just down to the personnel and defence. It's systematic. This team isn't complete. It's at the start of a journey. So we've all just got to try and simmer down now, calm ourselves down, and then get up for like a big game against Tottenham and smash them.
That'd be nice.
That's what we need to do, and smash them at home at Anfield, and give Jurgen the send off he deserves. So we can't get too bogged down. I think already the Salah and Jurgen issue a line will have been drawn under it. I'm sure that's already the end of it. I expect Salah back in the lineup at the weekend and back among the goals.
We'll do the Gakpo one then as well. I'll let you go first on this, Ian. It was a bit of a mad situation. It is what I would describe it as. And even in the ground, you're onto it. You're like, he's just rolled that out. Why has he just rolled that out? The ref doesn't give a foul, and then sort of has the situation where he goes, shit, I'm gonna have to do something here because he thinks he's got a free kick. Is this a moment? Is this common sense refereeing that people often appeal for, or is it a bit of madness? And I wonder because I've been following it a little bit, and there's the refs what's counted was saying, he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. He'll get loads of criticism. I think if he'd have let the goal stand, everyone would have gone, that keeper's a divvy. I think that's what would have happened. Rather than the ref getting loads of stick, I think people would have gone like, he's messed up there.
Johnny Bairstow.
Yeah,
a bit like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No sympathy for him.
What did you make of the whole thing and the ref and how the ref dealt with it?
Well, you said before you don't think the refs are as bad as everyone's saying. I think they are actually possibly worse than everyone's saying. I think you said they're not the story. They are, and if you've got PGMOL, it's overseen by a man who was always the story whenever he was in the middle of the park refereeing, then all the referees are going to make damn sure that they're the story. And they've been the story all bloody season. Between them and the VAR, both of whom are shit at their jobs, it's been an absolute fiasco all season on everything they've done, whether it's red cards, whether it's offsides, whether it's goals that are clearly onside, that they've decided are onside and then don't bother giving them anyway. The whole thing is a mess, and I don't think PGMOL are fit for purpose, and certainly not under the current leadership. I think they've gone backwards over the last 2 years. I think VAR would work better if you had me on my mobile watching the telly and just ringing them on the worst signal you've ever heard in your life. It would still work better than it's working at the moment.
I mean, Liverpool would get more points.
I was going to say, I think Gakpo would have been allowed to put that
in. So many City sendings off. They VAR'd West Ham's goal. It was kind of like, why are you VARing this? The first goal, it's like, this is pathetic. Why are you looking for an offside in this goal? He scored the goal. Crack on, just carry on, start the game. But the particular Gakpo one, I was watching it go, okay, so I had to watch it 4 or 5 times, and I was rewinding it in real time rather than watching the rest of the game. So he goes up, he catches the ball, he comes down, he buckles a little, hits his ankle on the post, but then gets up and he's got the ball in his hand. There's no free kick. The game hasn't stopped. He then decides he's going to roll it out. The ball was in play. The ball's still in play. He's just put the ball back in play.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what he does next. If he's decided to pull his socks up, which is all he was doing.
Yeah.
He wasn't going and look at, I've hurt my ankle here. He's pulling his bloody socks up. The ball is in play. Gakpo has every right to attack it. And then because it's being attacked and because the referee is Anthony Taylor, he looks at it and goes, oh shit.
Yeah.
And blows. So Gakpo stops. I wish Gakpo had just carried on playing in the back of the net. Yeah. And what would have happened if he'd carried on? He'd have got booked. Yeah. And then you'd have another conversation about about how badly the referee has been. But then the ref walks up to him and tells him to sit down.
Yeah, gets the trainer up.
I think Taylor's how he handles the aftermath. It tells you everything.
He's dropped complete bollock, hasn't he?
Yeah, like I mean that,
and he knows it.
Yeah, like it's just another one, isn't it? I mean, Liverpool were on the right end of one recently, wasn't it? Which the Forest one, with the restart. When Forest had the ball and it was given back to Kelleher, wasn't it? And they ended up scoring a couple of minutes later. But I think referees, I don't know whether referees' heads are just kettled a little bit, like with so much going on. It's like something, it seems to come out of every game, doesn't it? Every single sort of one. I mean, I don't like to talk about them because I don't like to make them as important as they've become in the sort of the narrative around football. But they do some mad stuff, and I thought Taylor's one of. I've never seen a referee go like, "No, mate, you need the physio." Like,
literally never.
And also, he restarts. Obviously, Andy producing obviously just reminded me, but I knew anyway. But he restarts out of his hands. He doesn't restart with the free kick off the floor. He gives the ball to the keeper in his hands. So obviously there's no free kick at any point.
He's not even saying, I've played advantage, there was no advantage. So
And he hasn't even given the free kick of like, well, Gakpo's, I've given a free kick against Gakpo for disrupting the start or whatever.
And he told the keeper to get up twice.
Yeah.
Which is the first time
and he's on the halfway line.
Get on with it.
He's on the halfway line, isn't he? When Areola throws it, which suggests usually you would have, if that was an injury, it'd be like, right, are you okay? Right, okay, and then we go.
Yeah.
He'd gone, hadn't he? So yeah.
But you're right, Gakpo would have been booked. If he put the ball in the net, he would have been booked. So I mean, some people have been critical of Cody and said, "Oh, it's so swing about him."
And the whistle does go, doesn't it?
The whistle blows.
He's looking around at him and going, like, "Am I right to put this in?" And he blows his whistle.
I mean, I wish he kicked it in the net. Same. It reminds me of the old Shea Gibbon and Dion Dublin one. When Dublin ran off the pitch and then he rolled the ball out. Gibbon, Dublin runs back on and puts it in the net. Part of me thinks just put it away. But yeah, he was covering for his mistakes immediately. He'd have found a way, and I agree in the fact that it has become the story of the season. VAR, even more so than last year. I think since the Diaz incident at the Tottenham Stadium, I just can't think of a season where you're pointing to so many that seem so obvious. The Martin Odegaard basketball at Anfield is one that people always pick out. The Diaz one, Doku kung fu kicking McAllister in the chest and it not being a penalty in a title decider in the last minute. But we've all got these stories. If we sat here with Wolves fans, I'm sure they'd list off 10 of them.
I think Forest have got a few.
Forest have got a few. I think it's safe to say. But every game you're watching, the Grealish handball at Wembley, the semi-final, the FA Cup, I thought was a farce. The following day, you've got a hairline offside, United against Coventry, and then even yesterday in North London derby, Romero scored a goal that I think was perfectly fine, that was ruled off. Someone's getting kicked in the balls in the box and it's not a penalty.
3 feet away from the referee.
Someone's arse might be playing someone onside or it might not. I think, you've got an offside rule that was put together, 100 years ago, and now we're looking at forensically, which is, of course, not the spirit of the law. I do think there's a serious need for a lot of people to get their heads together in the summer and say we can't have another season where this is just the constant narrative and the only sort of recompense or the only recourse at the end of it all is sitting down to watch Howard Webb and Michael Owen explain why it's all okay.
But this can be done because PGMOL are an outside body employed by the Premier League.
Fire them?
Fire them. Get 14 clubs together. God knows there's 14 clubs with concerns. Get 14 clubs together and say, you're not good enough to do this.
Because Onana was allowed to punch someone in the head at the start of the season, but he's not allowed now.
He could argue that, couldn't he? I've done this before.
Yeah, last time.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm sceptical whether we get any better, to be honest with you. But anyway, okay, as promised, we're going to talk a little about what you'd like to see between now and the end of the season. And there's 3 games. I mean, you've already said twat Tottenham as action point 1.
That's my first objective.
But,
tick box.
He has got an opportunity to do different things. He can go, right, okay, let's pick our strongest team on Sunday and listen, people are saying they're disappointed or whatever, but we've had a full week and he can potentially do that. There's younger players, Ian Salmon mentioned before, the likes of Dans and Bobby Clark, you could give them a go. It's open for him now. We are going to finish 3rd or possibly 4th, but it effectively means the same thing. It means Champions League qualification next season. So there is a bit of an opening for him to sort of do what he wants between now and the end of the season, Jürgen. So what would you like him to do?
Yeah, there is to an extent, but it's also, I don't think it's a case of 3rd or 4th. I'd be very disappointed if we finish 4th now. And financially, I guess we'd take a hit as well if we drop down a position in the league. I do think that it's still, and I heard a point made at the weekend, I think by Dan Morgan, talking about how good seasons often begin with the end of the previous season.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter for Jurgen though, does it?
No. Team happy, yeah.
No, we're not quite, but you can't expect Jurgen to necessarily be finished thinking about
No, but I do think he wants to win these games and go out on as much of a high as you can. I mean, I don't think it's a case for throwing in the youngsters. I think is what I'm saying. I don't think we can throw in youngsters and say, well, nothing to play for. It's a free hit. I do think that certain players in the last few weeks have proven they deserve their spot. We've talked about Diaz. We've talked about Robertson. They should be starting McAllister, although he's had a little bit of a dip. I think they've been big players for the last few months. And I do want to see, Gakpo rewarded with another start. I was, one of the ones who've been a bit doubtful of Gakpo and said over the last few weeks, I just don't feel like I've seen enough from him. But I felt like he's brought more to his game. He's forced a couple of goals, even if he's not directly been the one to put the ball in the net. He's looking bright and he's knitting play together well. I'd like to see Salah come back in alongside. So Diaz, Gakpo and Salah. I want to see us take a game to Tottenham because, defensively, if we think we're bad, they're right up there. And if we just get our corners right, we could win 8-0 ourselves.
Put the corners on the goalie.
Yeah.
I've never seen a goalie. I've never seen a goalie in the Premier League with every team knows what to do.
Did you see the game at Goodison?
Yeah.
When Everton just did it over and over.
I must have seen 10 Tottenham games this season, and it just feels like they just go boom into the penalty area under the crossbar, and he can't deal with them, and he'll probably, I bet you he gets in team of the year because he seems to have been sort of like bigged up as
he's been anointed, hasn't he?
Yeah, but he's a very dodgy goalkeeper on corners. But I think I want to see Jurgen pick the team that Jurgen picks, as in I don't want him to turn into this kind of crisis mode manager where he's trying to search for solutions. I think he should go back to the players that he would pick if these games mattered to the nth degree. I think if Liverpool were going for the league, I wanted to pick the team that he would pick if Liverpool were going for the league, because I think that's how it should finish. I don't think he should start on this sort of burning bridges kind of mission between now and the end of the season. So, Salah's he's out. I've had enough of him. He's out. Like Konate, I think he should just go back to the team and just trust them players to sort of to have the personal pride and the sort of the muscle memory, if you like, of actually we can do this and finish it. 2 big games. You look at it really. Big occasion, Anfield, sort of rip-roaring Sunday against a good side in Spurs, and then a Monday night at Aston Villa where the atmosphere will be great. They should enliven Liverpool, I think, and I want to see them. I'd like to see them a bit more enlivened.
Yeah,
got to finish third. Go for everything I said about having to face up to before. I refuse to face up to the idea of finishing 4th in a 3-horse race. That's embarrassing.
Below Aston Villa.
Yeah, that would just be embarrassing. After what we were in for this season. So yes, strongest team. I don't know where Jurgen's head is at the moment. Jurgen looks absolutely exhausted. He looks broken. He looks like the whole thing's just got to him. And I'd rather see him go out with 3 good games and just finish the season on a high for everything he's given us over the last decade, for everything he's done for this club. I'd like him to go out going, well, that's what we did in the end. And it may have ended up being a shit season because of 1 month, but look at what we actually achieved at the end. Finish there, go out, yeah. Job 1, twat Tottenham. Job 2, twat Villa. Job 3, twat Wolves. There you go. Have that.
Easy. Twat everyone. Up to Reds. Thanks a lot to Ian. Thanks a lot to the Neils. Thanks to Andy for producing. Jordan doing the video as well. Hope you've enjoyed that. Loads more from the Anfield Wrap this week in the build up to free twattings. Up to Reds.